Here's the brutal truth about broken relationships that no one wants to admit. You can't fix the other person. You never could. And the moment you stop trying to change them and start changing yourself, everything shifts. Most men approach relationship problems like they're trying to solve a puzzle. They analyze every argument, dissect every conversation, and strategize their next move to get their partner to see things their way. This is exactly why they fail. Listen carefully. The reason your relationship is broken isn't because of what she said last Tuesday or because he doesn't appreciate your efforts. It's broken because you've been operating from a position of weakness, disguised as strength. You think being right matters. You think winning the argument will save the relationship. You think if you just explain yourself better, communicate more clearly, or try harder, they'll finally understand. This is the thinking that destroys everything you're trying to protect. The Stoic philosophers understood something that modern relationship advice completely misses. Control is an illusion, but influence is real. You can't control how your partner responds, what they think, or what they choose to do. But you can control how you show up, how you communicate, and how you respond to their actions. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." In relationships, this principle becomes your foundation for rebuilding what's been broken. Most people approach relationship repair from a place of desperation. They're reactive, emotional, and focused on immediate results. They want their partner to change right now, to see their perspective right now, to fix things right now. This desperation leaks through everything they do, and it repels the very person they're trying to reconnect with. Stoic communication isn't about becoming emotionally distant or suppressing your feelings. It's about becoming the most grounded, authentic version of yourself so you can show up fully in the relationship without losing yourself in it. The first principle is this: separate what you can control from what you can't. In any broken relationship, you'll find that 90% of your mental energy is being wasted on things completely outside your control. You're focused on their tone, their words, their reactions, their decisions. All of this is external to you. What can you actually control? Your words, your tone, your body language, your responses, and most importantly, your internal state when you enter any interaction. That's it. That's your entire domain of power, but it's also more powerful than you realize. Here's what this looks like in practice. Instead of entering a difficult conversation thinking, "I need to make them understand," you think, "I need to express myself clearly and authentically." The shift is subtle but transformative. One approach is manipulation, trying to create a specific outcome in another person. The other is integrity, being true to yourself regardless of the outcome. The second principle is emotional sovereignty. This means you take complete responsibility for your emotional state. If you're angry, that's your anger to manage. If you're hurt, that's your hurt to process. If you're disappointed, that's your disappointment to understand. This doesn't mean you don't share your emotions or that you pretend they don't exist. It means you own them completely, instead of making them someone else's responsibility to fix. When you say, "You make me feel, ... you've already lost your power. When you say, "I feel, and I'm taking responsibility for working through this," you've reclaimed it. Let me tell you what really breaks relationships. It's not the big fights or the obvious incompatibilities. It's the slow erosion of respect that happens when two people stop seeing each other as separate, complete individuals and start treating each other as extensions of themselves. You know this has happened when you find yourself getting frustrated that your partner doesn't think like you, react like you, or prioritize the same things you do. You've unconsciously started expecting them to be a better version of you instead of appreciating them for who they actually are. This creates a toxic dynamic where every difference becomes a threat, every disagreement becomes a battle for control, and every conversation becomes an attempt to prove who's right rather than understand what's true. The Stoics had a concept called the view from above, the ability to step back and see situations from a broader perspective when applied to relationships. This means seeing your partner as a complete human being with their own history, wounds, fears, and ways of processing the world. Most broken relationships can be traced back to two people who stopped being curious about each other and started being certain about each other. Certainty kills relationships. Curiosity saves them. Here's the psychological pattern that destroys most relationships. Person A does something that triggers person B. Person B reacts emotionally and blames person A for making them feel that way. Person A gets defensive and either fights back or shuts down. Person B interprets this reaction as confirmation that person A doesn't care about their feelings. The cycle escalates. This pattern exists because both people are operating from their wounded inner child instead of their wise inner adult. They're reacting to old pain instead of responding to present reality. They're trying to heal childhood wounds through their romantic relationship, which never works. Stoic communication breaks this cycle by introducing a pause between trigger and response. In that pause, you remember who you choose to be instead of reacting from who you used to be. Real Stoic communication has 4 components that work together to create connection instead of conflict. First is presence. Before you speak, ground yourself. Take a breath, feel your feet on the floor. Remind yourself that this conversation is an opportunity to understand and be understood, not to win or be right. Presence means showing up as the person you want to be, not the person your triggers make you become. When you're truly present, your partner can feel it. They relax unconsciously because they sense they're dealing with your authentic self, not your defensive persona. This creates the foundation for real communication. Second is ownership. Take complete responsibility for your part in every dynamic. Not 50% responsibility, that's keeping score. Take 100% responsibility for your actions, words, and internal state. This doesn't mean you're to blame for everything. It means you focus exclusively on what you can actually change. Here's what ownership sounds like. I notice I get defensive when we talk about money, and I want to understand why that happens so I can show up better in these conversations. Not you always bring up money in a way that makes me defensive. The difference is night and day. One creates curiosity and connection. The other creates defensiveness and distance. Third is clarity. Say what you mean without making the other person responsible for how you feel. Express your experience without making it a demand for them to change. Share your perspective without insisting they adopt it. Clarity sounds like, I feel disconnected when we don't talk for several days, and I miss our conversations. Not, you never call me anymore, and it's making me feel unloved. The first statement shares your experience and expresses what you value. The second statement makes accusations and creates obligation. One invites connection, the other demands it. Fourth is known attachment. This is the hardest part, but the most important. Communicate your truth and then let go of the outcome. Don't track their facial expressions for signs of agreement. Don't analyze their tone for hidden meanings. Don't wait for them to validate your perspective. Speak your truth because it's your truth, not because you need them to accept it. Express your feelings because they're real, not because you need them to fix them. Share your perspective because it's honest, not because you need them to adopt it. This non-attachment isn't indifference, it's freedom. When you're not desperately clinging to a specific response, you can actually hear what they're saying, instead of just waiting for your turn to talk. Let me show you how this works in real situations that break most relationships. Scenario 1. Your partner criticizes something you did. The normal response is to get defensive, explain why you did it, or criticize them back. The Stoic response is different. First, pause. Feel the defensive reaction rise up and let it exist without acting on it. Then respond from choice, not reaction. I can hear that what I did affected you negatively. Help me understand your experience so I can do better next time. Notice what just happened. You didn't agree or disagree with their criticism. You didn't defend or attack. You acknowledged their experience and asked for information. This transforms criticism into collaboration. Scenario 2. You feel like your partner isn't listening to you or taking your concerns seriously. The normal response is to talk louder, repeat yourself, or get emotional to make them pay attention. The Stoic response is counterintuitive. You say, I notice I feel unheard right now, and I want to pause this conversation until I can approach it from a better place. This topic matters to me, and I want to discuss it when we can both be present for each other. You just took complete responsibility for your emotional state, communicated your boundary clearly, and prioritized the relationship over being right. This usually creates immediate respect and curiosity from your partner. Scenario 3. Your partner does something that hurts you. The normal response is to make them feel bad about it, explain why it hurt, or withdraw to punish them. The Stoic response cuts through all the drama. You say, when you specific behavior, I felt hurt. I'm not making that your fault, but I want you to know the impact it had on me. How can we handle similar situations differently in the future? You owned your emotional response, communicated the impact without blame, and focused on solutions instead of problems. This creates safety for your partner to be honest instead of defensive. Here's what most people miss. These responses work not because they manipulate the other person into behaving differently, but because they create the conditions where authentic connection becomes possible. You can't force someone to love you or respect you, but you can become the kind of person who naturally inspires love and respect. The deepest truth about fixing broken relationships is that you don't fix them by trying to fix them. You fix them by becoming whole yourself and then interacting with your partner from that wholeness instead of from your wounds. Most relationship advice focuses on techniques and strategies: what to say, how to say it, when to bring things up. This is all surface level. The real work happens internally. It's about healing the parts of yourself that need other people to be different so you can feel okay. When you're constantly trying to get your partner to change, you're basically saying, "I can't be happy unless you're different." This puts an impossible burden on them and guarantees your own suffering. When you focus on becoming the person you want to be, regardless of what they do, everything changes. This doesn't mean you accept disrespectful behavior or stay in relationships that aren't working. It means you make decisions from strength and clarity instead of fear and desperation. You choose to stay because the relationship adds to your life, not because you need it to feel complete. The Stoics understood that other people are going to be exactly who they are, and your happiness can't depend on them being different. Your partner will have their own triggers, their own ways of processing emotions, their own communication style, and their own timeline for growth. Your job isn't to change them. Your job is to love them as they are, while being completely honest about who you are. Sometimes this creates beautiful connection. Sometimes it reveals fundamental incompatibilities. Both outcomes are valuable because both lead to truth. When you start communicating from Stoic principles, something shifts in your relationships that goes beyond just better conversations. You start attracting people who appreciate authenticity instead of people who need you to be different. You start creating connections based on mutual respect instead of mutual need. Your partner begins to see you differently. Instead of someone who's trying to change them, they see someone who's committed to growing themselves. Instead of someone who makes them responsible for your emotions, they see someone who takes full ownership of their inner world. Instead of someone who needs them to be perfect, they see someone who accepts them as they are, while inspiring them to become their best self. This creates a positive cycle. The more grounded and authentic you become, the safer your partner feels to be authentic too. The more you focus on your own growth instead of their behavior, the more space they have to grow naturally. The more you communicate from wholeness instead of woundedness, the more they're inspired to do the same. But here's what you need to understand. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without resistance. Your old patterns will fight back. Your partner might initially be suspicious of your changes. Some relationships won't survive this shift because they were built on unhealthy dynamics that can't exist when you refuse to participate in them anymore. This is not a failure. This is clarity. Some relationships are meant to teach you what you don't want, so you can become clear about what you do want. Some people are in your life to help you grow, not to stay forever. Some connections need to end so better ones can begin. The ultimate goal of Stoic communication isn't just to fix your current relationship, it's to become the kind of person who creates healthy relationships naturally. It's to develop the emotional maturity and communication skills that will serve you in every relationship for the rest of your life. When you master these principles, you become attractive to emotionally healthy people and less tolerant of emotionally unhealthy dynamics. You stop settling for relationships that require you to be less than who you are. You start creating connections that inspire both people to grow and evolve. You also become a model for others. Your friends notice how you handle conflict. Your family sees how you communicate during stress. Your children learn what healthy relationships look like by watching how you show up in yours. Your commitment to Stoic principles ripples out and affects everyone around you. This is how you change the world, not by trying to fix everyone else, but by becoming so grounded in your own principles that others are naturally inspired to examine their own. The broken relationship you're trying to fix might not be fixable, but you are. The person who entered that relationship with unhealed wounds, unclear boundaries, and the need for others to be different So you could feel okay that person can evolve. The person who communicates from strength instead of weakness, who takes responsibility instead of placing blame, who focuses on growth instead of control, that person creates the conditions where love can flourish. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." In relationships, the best response to dysfunction is not to match it, but to transcend it. When someone communicates poorly, you communicate excellently. When someone operates from their wounds, you operate from your wisdom. When someone tries to control the outcome, you focus on your integrity. This isn't about being perfect or never making mistakes. It's about catching yourself when you slip back into old patterns and choosing to respond differently. It's about progress. Your relationship might heal. It might end. It might transform into something completely different than what it was before. All of these outcomes are acceptable when you're operating from Stoic principles, because you're not attached to any specific result. You're committed to showing up as your best self, regardless of what happens. That's true freedom. That's real strength. That's the foundation of every great relationship you'll ever have. The choice is always yours. You can keep trying to change everyone around you and stay frustrated forever. Or you can change yourself and watch how everything else naturally shifts in response. If this changed how you think about relationships, take a moment to reflect on this question. In your most important relationship, what would change if you focused entirely on who you're being instead of what they're doing? If you're ready to stop trying to control others and start mastering yourself, comment below. I control my focus. Let's build a community of people committed to showing up as their best selves in every relationship. Your relationships are a mirror. What are they reflecting back to you?